The phrase compassionate conservative, he was talking about three leaders that were in the middle of the flood zone and went through that entire program without ever mentioning the flood victims, who of course protested at the speech. And he got 51 standing ovations. And I think the thing that works with Clinton is 76% of the people love him, 76% also believe he's a liar, but he's so specific about these lies. I think the thing about it, which is amazing, is that the governor is like the bionic woman. You know, she took a half a day off when she had her appendectomy. And when we were calling, trying to get news on the governor's condition in Washington, you get it directly from her. She said, yeah, they're putting 7 pins in my leg. She's incredibly strong.
Quite a fundraising guru in Washington, raised a lot of money last year when he was running in New Jersey, went back, and even as a freshman managed to snare the job as co-chair of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee.
This is another opportunity for her to push her moderate Republican politics out and help her party recover from their image of mean-spiritedness.
I heard you say on this show that DeFrancesco wasn't going to call in any chits on this.
I think that's what he's weighing. I think that's what he's weighing, and I know that Counsel John Farmer is, I mean, I think part of the onus shift back to the governor's office. Former Senator Bill Bradley, back for the first time since February when he did a fundraiser here, was standing ovation, better Bradley than you've ever seen.
Really?
He'd honed his speech in. He wanted to talk about big ideas that the Democrats had been responsible for, Social Security, Medicare.
And yet he also took a swipe at Peter Bernero, which I read in your paper, in your column, you gave him a down arrow for. You thought it was like a cheap shot.
I think it was a cheap shot when you considered where he was. He came in and took a shot at profiling, said we couldn't allow it. Bradley, who of course has always had a very strong record against racism. And when I asked him, were there any Democrats in New Jersey who might also have ignored racial profiling, failed to act, he was a little brusque. Gore proves Bradley's point. Bradley says he wants to talk about big ideas. And what's been successful for Clinton Gore is this kind of micromanaging. Let's talk about school uniforms. Let's talk about the census.
That was Hillary.
Well, the thing that was interesting to me was that Congressman Rush Holt, who she was campaigning for, got much warmer welcome than did the First Lady. I mean, these were Democrats. They were polite. She got an ovation coming in, ovation going out. But Holt got cheers. I mean, he was definitely a favorite of the crowd. Mrs. Clinton was her standard campaigning self. She only talked about Holt and guns. She didn't talk about her own campaign race. Not much wit. I thought she's pretty dry. Corzine is convincing people that he is one of us, as opposed to the governor who's wealthy and elite. And you can almost see that when Jim asked this.
Who's wealthy and elite?
The assumption.
Whitman. I thought we were talking about Democrats.
So Jim asked this question, and he gives kind of a thoughtful answer, not a polished answer. Is he delusional enough? I mean, I spoke with him a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he wouldn't get in the race unless he thought he had a reasonable chance of winning. Well, no one thinks he has a reasonable chance of winning.
Jesse Ventura, the two words of the mantra of every independent candidate.
But we're basically talking about the crackpot vote here, right? Civilian Review is the most liberal approach to police reform. And it's like they're mucking up this report, which is looking at a lot of internal reforms and raising the ante.
Well, Sherry wrote that the governor's office has bungled this job. You used that word, and so did Don DeFrancesco use the same word.
I think they have bungled it. My analysis is not exactly the same as David's, but I do think that I find it hard to believe that there's no ill will between Whitman and Justice. And it goes back to the racial profiling report. What I heard, my sources told me that there were people at Justice who were very angry that Whitman essentially preempted their challenge of New Jersey by coming out with a report that acknowledged what they were going to accuse her of.
Sherry has news for us. Go ahead.
Just before we were filming, the Democrats and the Republicans and the state county clerks and the state who had banded together to appeal this attack on the Republican and Democratic system won. So we'll be going another round with this, undoubtedly. This legislation could have just completely decimated political life as we know it in New Jersey.